Hello everyone, I'm Mika Thrimsdottir and this is Seeking Dinah, where I go down various mystical rabbit holes to help dig out unhealthy social structures and stereotypes at their roots. In this series on Genesis, I'm exploring different ways to understand the stories of Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, and, of course, Dinah, who inspired this whole thing to begin with. In the first two videos of this series, we looked at Sarah, Rebecca, and then the crazy melodrama that resulted in Rebecca's son Jacob getting two wives, only one of whom could inherit Rebecca's household goods. This video wraps up the story with Dinah's tragedy and what that meant for the gods of Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. 7 years after the events that ended in two sisters getting married to the same man, it was time for Jacob's family to go back to his parents' household, as he had promised to do 14 years earlier. And by now, there's quite a few of them. Time for a recap! Rebecca had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Jacob married two local women that his mother hated, and then his paternal cousin, who Rebecca hated just as much. Jacob went off back to Samaria. While there, he married a pair of sisters, and at their insistence got busy with their maids too, ending up eventually with 12 strapping boys and one girl. That girl, Dinah, is our main focus. But first, we need to get this family out of Haran and back to Canaan, whatever, where Rebecca is waiting for the niece who will inherit her household goods and traditions. So here we are. Jacob is out with the herds because he's still basically an indentured servant. Leah, Rachel, their maids, and all of their children are living under Laban, who enjoys throwing his weight around as patriarch of this thriving enterprise. And here we learn that Laban also has sons and brothers. Whether they're biological or social doesn't really matter. What matters is that they all are taking advantage of Jacob's hard work. And although we're not told as much, it's pretty obvious that they're taking advantage of the work the women are doing too. After all, the women aren't just sitting around doing nothing. They're spinning and weaving and dyeing and making candles and all the other things that are involved in a business like this one, as well as the ordinary work of running the household. They're tired of being taken advantage of. But Laban doesn't see it. Why should he? This is probably how Laban saw his household. Him at the top, his sons and brothers, friends and allies with him, enjoying the good life provided by his two daughters and their maids. Their husband, his nephew, was out in the fields making him a good profit with sheep and goats. Smartest thing Laban ever did, getting free labor out of Jacob in return for marrying his girls. The last thing Laban wanted was for Jacob to return home to Canaan. Laban had already done everything he could to make Jacob stay, marrying him to the heiress of his household instead of the younger daughter first, then keeping him dependent and poor. He just needed to wear Jacob down and get the man to realize that he was part of Laban's household now, and Laban could continue enjoying his position as a powerful, wealthy patriarch. Laban didn't count on his daughters. This is how they saw the family. As far as they were concerned, neither of them belonged to Laban's household anymore. Laban had bargained them away in return for 14 years of labor, and was exploiting them as well. Now that the 14 years were up, they were more than ready to leave. Jacob, Leah, and Rachel together decided that they were going to have to sneak away from the maternal family house. So when Laban was off doing something else, Jacob took all the herds that he was owed and sent them into hiding, ready to leave town. Leah packed up her goods and the things of her personal household. Rachel packed up her personal belongings too. And in among her belongings, she also packed her family's gods. This is the first time in all of Genesis that we hear about anyone having gods to pack away. The interpretations that I've seen attempt to justify this in various ways that I'm going to ignore. Instead, I'm going to suggest that this was not just common, but the reason why Laban's daughter was chosen in the first place. It makes much more sense to me that Sarah also had a collection of gods, that were then given into Rebekah's keeping, and that the reason Rebekah despised her daughters-in-law was because they had no respect for her gods. In case you're curious, here's one from Nippur of the god Enlil. It's pretty small, easy to pack and store away, perfect for semi-nomadic pastoralists. All right, back to Rachel. Why on earth would she decide to remove the gods from her father's house? The gods of the house signal divine authority, power, and belonging. Their presence ensures the community's well-being. Without the gods, Laban and his people will have no focus for their customary rituals, no divine authority to lean on, and no power to appeal to. Clearly, either Rachel didn't care what Laban would endure because of this, or there was something even more important that she was concerned about. It was probably both. Remember, as part of the bargain Jacob would have made with his first wife, which was supposed to be Rachel, she would be Rebekah's heir. That means Leah will be taking over stewardship of Rebekah's and Sarah's household gods, becoming matriarch of that household. If Rachel leaves her household goods and gods to her greedy, selfish father, not only will there be nobody to properly honor the gods at home, but she and her people will lose their independence, becoming dependent on Leah for worship and ritual practice. That's obviously not something she's willing to do. To keep her household status equal with her sisters, and to keep the honor of her gods intact, she must take her mother's goods and gods with her, and deal with whatever consequences may follow. When Laban returns from his business trip, it's bad enough that his daughters and grandsons are gone along with a good percentage of the herds he'd counted as his. It's the absence of the gods, the wordless but absolute condemnation that is signaled by their absence, that sends him, his sons, and his brothers riding hell-bent for leather after his daughters. His status, his identity within the community, are founded on the presence of the gods in his household, and he will do literally anything to get them back. Laban and Jacob agreed that whoever had the sacred objects would be killed on the spot, which is pretty awful considering these are Laban's daughters and grandchildren. Rachel was probably prepared for this, however. By the time Laban's people reach her tent, she's already hidden them underneath her seat, claiming that time of the month. And nobody's going to mess with that. So, after a really unconvincing show of reconciliation, Laban and his gang return to their hometown. For the foreseeable future, then, Rachel and Leah were equals. Rachel had her tent and household, and Leah had hers. But there's something different about this generation than the previous ones, because Leah's youngest child is a girl, Dinah. This is a game changer, because under matriarchal custom, Dinah stands to inherit Leah's household goods at the very least, and possibly Rachel's as well. This means that none of Leah's sons can promise their wives the hope of inheriting the wealth of Sarah, Rebekah, and Leah. It all belongs to Dinah, and whoever she marries. Thus begins the tragedy of Dinah, and the story of how women lost, well, everything. The story starts with Jacob's family camped outside of a prosperous town. There are rather a lot of them by this point. They are already a sizable tribe. Any meeting on this scale is going to require some diplomacy. Luckily, nobody really wants to fight. Jacob's family wants to go shopping and see the sights and do the do's, and the folk of the town are more than happy to oblige. Dinah meets up with some local girls to go dancing. And here's where the trouble starts. The son of the town chief, a young man named Shechem, sees Dinah, and, well, he kidnaps her and seduces her. Or else just straight up rapes her. Either way, she ends up locked away in Shechem's house, and now there's about to be a war. Jacob wants his daughter back, or else. There's just one problem. Shechem has fallen in love with the girl and wants to marry her. A lot of other men in town are in love too, and want to marry the girls they've met among Jacob's people. Now remember, there's still a strong matriarchal streak among Jacob's clan, at least among the older generation. So Jacob's people come up with a compromise that fits right in with the matriarchal tradition. Shechem and his friends can all get married, but they'll have to give up their identities and become part of Jacob's tribe. That means they'll have to get circumcised. Shechem is thrilled at the chance to marry Dinah, and he immediately agrees. So do all the other men, and the upshot is that everyone in the town are going to mix and mingle with Jacob's crowd, marrying and being family, and won't this be grand? Well, it would be, except for Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi. Oh, they're going to claim that everything they do is vengeance for their sister, but is that really true? Because let's face it, right now, they are some of the most important people in the whole tribe. They are the second and third born of the first wife, and they're used to throwing their weight around. But what would happen if Dinah got married? If Shechem and Dinah get married, Simeon and Levi lose their authority in the clan. Why? Because Dinah is the matriarchal heir of Jacob's people, and Shechem is the darling boy of his. Right now, Dinah is still legally a dependent. When she gets married, however, she will become the matriarch of her own not-so-little household. All of the young men who treat Shechem as their leader, and presumably their new wives who grew up with Dinah, will recognize Dinah as the heir of Leah's household, and therefore Jacob's as well. Even worse, Shechem, as Dinah's husband, will be in the running for becoming patriarch of the whole blended clan. This would make Shechem and Dinah the ultimate power couple, and Simeon and Levi would lose whatever power they have. They're not going to let that happen. What do they do about it? Well, when Shechem and all the men in town are recovering from the pain of circumcision, Simeon and Levi go in and kill them. Then they grab all the gold and all the riches and all the women and children, in short, everything and everyone that would have gone to Dinah after her marriage, and Simeon and Levi take them for themselves. In one bloody day, Simeon and Levi instantly become the wealthiest people of Israel, and Dinah, their baby sister, loses everything. Very soon after this, Jacob would formally end matriarchal traditions among his people, ordering all the women to remove their jewelry and the clothes that marked their identity and authority, take all their gods from their tents, and bury everything under a tree. This was not a good thing. It was so evil that Jacob, who even gave Reuben a bit of a break, cursed the sons who had made it happen. But that didn't help Dinah. She's never spoken of again. She disappears from the text, maybe hidden in her brother's tents or escaped into the wilderness or buried under the same tree as all the gods she once worshipped. That's why I'm calling this series Seeking Dinah. To me, Dinah represents the final victim that made greed and power more important than people. If we want to fix what's wrong with our culture today, if we want to end the abuses of patrilineal, patrilocal culture, I think we need to find her again, and all her spiritual sisters. We need to return the inheritance that her brothers stole, and restore the balance of power, of authority, of honor that was once ordinary. If we have the courage to do this, I think we'll be surprised at how amazing the world will become. See you next time, and thanks for watching.